Every afternoon after school, the children loved to play in a huge garden that surrounded a deserted castle. They loved to play there. One day while playing, a great voice yelled out, "What are you doing in my garden?" It seems the giant had returned back to his castle, and he did not want the children to play there. He shouted at them and told them to leave and never come back. They all ran away as fast as they could. The giant then built a huge spiked fence around his garden, so none of the children could ever get in. The giant put a large gate in the fence with a sign that said, "Keep out," in big black letters. The children would pass by and look sadly at their favorite place to play. They really missed playing in the beautiful garden. Soon fall and winter came and covered everything in snow and frost. The giant looked out his castle window at his snow-covered garden and wished for spring to come. Spring did come, everywhere except in the giant's garden. The snow and frost were thrilled to have a place to stay forever. One morning, the giant was lying awake in bed when he heard a bird singing. He leapt from his bed to look out the window. His whole garden was in spring bloom. The snow and frost were finally gone. Then he noticed all the children playing in his garden. You see, they had snuck into the garden through a hole in the wall, and spring had followed them in. One little boy was crying because he could not climb the trees like all the other children. He was just too small to reach. The giant helped the small boy to the top of the tree. The little boy gave the giant a hug and a kiss and said thank you. The giant thought it was time to let the children play in his garden, so he knocked down the big wall. The children played every day in the giant's beautiful garden. When the giant realized he had not seen the little boy he had helped to the top of the tree, he asked the other children, "Where is your little friend?" "We do not know," said the children. The giant asked the children every day if they had seen their little friend. The children told the giant, "The only day we saw him was the day you knocked down the wall." The years passed and the giant grew old and weak, and he could no longer play with the children. One cold winter morning, he was looking out the window, and he noticed the most beautiful tree he had ever seen.
Wow!
The tree was covered with delicate white blossoms with silver fruit, and beneath the tree was the little boy who had gone missing for so long. "He's come back at last," said the giant joyfully. Forgetting how old and weak he was, the giant rushed down the castle stairs and hurried across the garden. But as he neared closer towards the little boy, he saw bruises and cuts and nail marks in his hands and feet. "Who has hurt you?" asked the giant. "As old and feeble as I am, I will kill the people who have done this to you." The small child smiled gently and said, "Hush, don't be angry, but come with me." "Who are you?" whispered the giant, falling to his knees. "A long time ago, you let me play in your garden," the child replied. "Now, I want you to come and play in my garden. It is called Paradise." That afternoon, when the children came to play in the garden in the winter snow, they found their giant friend lying dead. The old giant looked so peaceful. He seemed to have a beautiful, peaceful, gentle smile on his quiet face. The giant was covered in small, beautiful white flower blossoms. The children thought he looked so happy and at rest. They said sweet prayers for him to be playing with children angels in a gorgeous paradise garden forever. The children always remembered the giant for his kind heart and generous spirit, and played in his garden forever. Once upon a time, there was a boy named Jack who lived with his mother. They were very poor. Jack's dad had left his mother a widow. They had to sell everything they owned just to buy food. When they were down to their last milking cow, Jack's mom asked him to take the cow to the market and sell it. Along the way, Jack met a strange man who told him wild stories of magic beans. "Where can I buy some of these magic beans for my mother?" asked Jack. "I have the last 5 magic beans, and I will sell them to you because you are a good boy," said the man. "I have nothing but our old cow, and we need the money I will get by selling her to buy food," said Jack. The strange man replied, "Don't worry. Trust me, these beans will bring you food and good fortune, and you will make your mother proud." Jack was not too sure, but he agreed to trade his cow for the beans. When Jack returned home, his mother was very angry, and she threw the magic beans out the window. She was so upset she began to cry. Jack went to bed that night sad and hungry. When he awoke in the morning, he saw a giant beanstalk had grown right where his mother had thrown the beans just outside the window. "The beans really are magic," he said. He could see the beanstalk reached all the way to the clouds high in the sky. Jack had heard stories of the clouds being filled with gold coins, so he began to climb the beanstalk to see what he could find. Jack climbed and climbed, and when he reached the top, he saw a giant castle. Jack slipped by the giant castle door. Once inside, he saw a giant man eating a huge dinner. Jack watched him eat. When the giant man was finished his dinner, he called for his servant to bring him his bag of gold coins. The giant was so full he fell asleep. Jack snuck up and took his bag of gold coins, running out of the castle as fast as he could and climbing down the beanstalk with the heavy bag. Jack's mother was very surprised and happy, as the gold coins in the sack were the same amount of coins the giant had stolen from Jack's father many years ago. Jack's mother also made Jack promise to never return to the giant's castle. She warned him how dangerous it was to go there, but soon the money began to run out. Jack wondered if he could find anything else in the giant's castle. He decided to climb back up the beanstalk to visit the giant's castle. He saw the giant eating his dinner. When he was finished, he called for his servant to bring his magic hen. Jack was amazed when he saw the hen lay an egg of pure gold. The giant became drowsy and fell asleep. Jack snuck up and took the hen and ran back towards the beanstalk. When he came home, Jack's mother was upset with Jack for returning to the castle. She grabbed an axe to cut down the beanstalk, but Jack stopped her and showed her that the hen lays golden eggs. Jack's mother was so pleased to see the hen laid one golden egg after another. After some time, Jack was very curious about what else he would find in the castle. So he climbed back up the beanstalk. He found the giant in his castle eating his dinner. He finished his dinner and called for his servant to bring his magic harp. Jack was surprised to hear the harp play beautiful music all by itself. The giant dozed off to the beautiful music coming from the harp. Jack snuck up and snatched the harp to take back to his mother. The harp started playing very loudly, and the giant awoke. "Fee, fi, fo, fum," said the giant. Jack raced down the beanstalk, trying to escape the angry giant. The beanstalk shook from the giant's large steps. Jack got to the bottom first and found the axe. He began to chop at the beanstalk. The beanstalk collapsed, and the giant fell to earth, never to be seen again. Jack and his mother and the hen lived happily ever after. All the Whos who lived in Whoville loved Christmas. But the Grinch, who lived just above Whoville, did not. No one knew why the Grinch hated Christmas. Maybe because his head was not screwed on right. His shoes, perhaps, were too tight. But most guessed it was that his heart was 2 sizes too small. Every Christmas Eve, he stood staring down from his cave, hating the Whos so busy below. Planning their Christmas day coming just tomorrow. "I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming," the Grinch growled. He knew if he did not stop Christmas from coming, the children would make so much noise with all their new Christmas toys. And then all the Whos would sit down to their Christmas feast. And after their feast, they did something the Grinch liked the least of all. All the Whos in Whoville would stand close together, with all the Christmas bells ringing. They would stand hand in hand and they would all start singing. "I must stop Christmas from coming." He then got an idea. He made a Santa Claus hat and coat and dressed up just like Saint Nick. He took his dog Max and tied a big horn on his head to make him look like a reindeer. He tied Max to an old sled and loaded some sacks, and they traveled down the mountain towards the town of Whoville. The Whos were all sleeping on this night before Christmas. But as they lay asleep, the Grinch slithered down chimneys and he took all the stockings and all the presents. He then went to the fridge to take all the Whos' feast. He took the Who pudding and even the roast beast. He took all the extras and even their last can of Who hash. He then took all the stuff and threw it up the chimney with glee. And then he even stuffed up the tree. He then heard a small sound and turned to see little Cindy Lou who was not more than 2. She asked the Grinch, "Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree?" The Grinch thought up a lie and told Cindy Lou a light was broken and he was taking the tree to his workshop. Then he would return the tree all fixed up. Cindy Lou smiled and went back to bed. He then stuffed the tree up. He even took a crumb so there was nothing even for a mouse. He did the same thing to every Who house and then packed up his sled. He raced to the top of Mount Crumpet where he would dump all the Whos' Christmas goodies. He grinned as he thought of all the Whos waking up and crying boo-hoo. The Grinch put his hand to his ear to listen to the Whos boo-hooing. What he did hear was quite a surprise. He heard the Whos singing. Every Who was singing. even without all their presents. The Grinch had not stopped Christmas at all. The Grinch then realized Christmas does not come from a store. He then realized Christmas is so much more. And what happened then in Whoville, they say, is that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart grew, he raced back towards Whoville with all the presents and toys and all the food for the feast. The Whos of Whoville greeted him with open arms and invited the Grinch to their Christmas feast. And as the Grinch sat beside Cindy Lou Who, he carved the roast beast. The end. Far, far away, there lived a green ogre named Shrek. He lived far away near a stinky swamp where no one ever came to visit. Shrek spent his days alone, which was just the way he liked it. One afternoon in the forest, a beast named Donkey bumped right into Shrek. The donkey started to talk and talk and talk. All of a sudden, a whole group of fairy tale strangers showed up. "What are you doing in my swamp?" cried Shrek. Shrek enjoyed his privacy and was quite annoyed with all the fairy tale creatures and Donkey. "I didn't invite them," Donkey said. Lord Farquaad, ruler of Diluc, had chased all the fairy tale creatures from his kingdom. Shrek started out to give Lord Farquaad a piece of his mind. Donkey tagged along. Meanwhile, Lord Farquaad was planning to marry the beautiful Princess Fiona. He had to hold a grand tournament to find a champion to rescue her from her tower. When Shrek arrived at the tournament, the Lord ordered his knights to fight Shrek instead. But they were no match for Shrek. Lord Farquaad was very impressed, and Shrek could have his quiet swamp back if he rescued the beautiful Princess Fiona from her tower. Donkey did not like the idea one bit, but Shrek was determined to rescue the princess and get his quiet life back. So they began their journey across the smoky fields. And soon they were in a dark castle with a fire-breathing dragon. Shrek managed to find Princess Fiona, while Donkey distracted the fire-breathing dragon. As they ran through the forest, Princess Fiona learned that Shrek really wanted his stinky swamp and quiet life, and he really did not care about saving her. Surprisingly, Shrek and Princess Fiona were a lot alike. And along the way home, they began to enjoy each other's company. Princess Fiona thought to herself that Shrek could not possibly feel the same way about her that she was feeling about him. So she continued on to marry Lord Farquaad. Shrek stomped off to his stinky swamp. He was quite sad and alone. Donkey saw how sad Shrek was, and he convinced Shrek he had to go tell Princess Fiona how he felt before she married Lord Farquaad. Meanwhile, Princess Fiona had a secret that would be revealed to the entire kingdom if the sun set before she received love's true kiss. When Shrek arrived, she was bathed in a dazzling light. Then the light started to fade. As the light faded, Princess Fiona transformed into a beautiful, green, female ogre. Lord Farquaad was horrified, But Shrek had never been happier. When Princess Fiona kissed Shrek, she wondered if she would be transformed back into the old dazzling princess. But she remained a green female ogre. "Oh dear, I am supposed to be beautiful," said Fiona. "But you are beautiful," said Shrek. They were in love. On his quest to protect his privacy, Shrek found true love and friendship instead. On the day of their wedding, the swamp overflowed with all their wonderful fairy tale friends. On the day of their wedding, the swamp overflowed with all of their wonderful friends and fairy tale creatures. The gingerbread man, Puss in Boots, the three blind mice, even Lord Farquaad and his knights came to celebrate the marriage of Shrek to his beautiful bride, Princess Fiona. Donkey was so excited, he found it hard to be quiet while Shrek and Princess Fiona took their wedding vows, but he managed to control his excitement. Shrek and Princess Fiona were married in their beautiful stinky swamp and lived happily ever after.